Hello, everybody, and welcome to Planet Sky Fantasy Football, the world where everything revolves around £50,000. James, any closer to the 50 big uns?
No, no closer this
No
week,
closer.
mate.
Me neither. I'm further away, but actually, to come out of the back end of the first 4 weeks and going into Overhaul, I feel quite happy with where I am with my team and what we did in the first 4 weeks and what we do moving forward.
Well done. What's the rank, sir?
Good question. I think I'm 13,000 now, which is
A little drop off.
quite a drop off from game week 2, which was at 3K. But when you look at the transfers, I know we don't really always get access to that info, but Dan Cox does share it. I think he was saying everybody inside the top 10,000 was like 31, 32. It was low 30s in terms of transfers. I've used one, so chilling.
Yeah, don't worry about that rank at the moment, guys.
Exactly.
We're just telling you where we are. I'm about 19,000, so a little bit behind you.
Yeah.
It's fine. It's probably a little bit disappointing in the sense that that's where I was at the end of game week 1, but I had a very good game week 1. So I'm hanging in there. 60. What did I get this week? 69 points.
Decent.
Which isn't bad when essentially I didn't have any captain returns other than Kevin De Bruyne putting in a couple of tackles. But then that was very quickly cancelled out by Virgil van Dijk's epic performance and his teammates at Villa Park. But week saved somewhat by Jack Grealish. Turned out to be quite a good transfer in for when St. Maximin scored on Saturday night. I was like, fucking hell, wasted that one. But Grealish's haul against Liverpool kind of cancelled out the loss on Van Dijk. Bertrand clean sheet, Bolly clean sheet, Aubameyang shots here. There wasn't a lot going on. Oh, Antonio, nice return from Antonio.
14 points was decent, right?
As well. So ticking over, and it's all I really wanted to do. I mean, in the sense to get 69 points with basically captain fails, and I've kind of had captain fails all the way through. I mean, Grealish on Sunday and De Bruyne captaincy against Wolves is the only hauls I've had. So the fact that I've kind of stayed in there, which was part of the plan, is fine. The people that I went with at the start, like Bolly, Bertrand, Luca Dean, all these guys for hoping on consistency, they're of zero interest to me now. And it's interesting to reflect now on the difference in mistakes I made last year. Last year, I took mistakes on punts. This year, I made the mistakes of going just a little bit too safe. For example, Roman Saiz was the play over Willy Bolly, for example. Little things like that have cost me a little bit, but lessons learned. It's okay. I'm in the mix.
I ended up on 57 points for my main team. My second team did a lot better because I had Heung-min Son and Raheem Sterling in that, and that ended up scoring 79. So both teams are doing okay. I mean, my second team overall on the leaderboard is 61k, which sounds a lot, but it's actually only less than 40 points behind my main team, which is one good captaincy. So I'm fairly happy with that as well. But in the end, it ended up being an average week. Again, like you, I was De Bruyne on Saturday, but I was Van Dijk on Sunday. But Harry Kane did for me what Jack Grealish did for you, basically saved my game week with 21 points. And it was the similar point scorers that you had in Antonio did okay for me. Everybody else was bits and pieces, like Kieran Tierney, passed here, Havertz, an assist, and everybody else was just 2s and 1s. So it was bits and pieces really that got me through. But I'm okay with that.
Interestingly, I should probably timestamp this myself so I can remember it for future reference. I picked the same first and second team at the start.
Mine are quite different.
With the intention of my second team being something to try and win the cup, thinking that the cup would start in January or February, right? Well, the second team's already out of the cup, so forget that.
Oh wow, you didn't get into it.
Yeah, the second team went in a preliminary round. It lost, mate.
Oh, okay.
So I'm not wasting it on that cup when the cup's going to be this early in the season. Forget that. It can just be what it can be. So I've left that dead.
Oh, yeah. I won. I didn't realise there was a preliminary round.
Oh, don't worry about it. None of us are winning it, mate. You just get fluked out
my
of
main
it.
My main team received the bye. And my second team smashed somebody 79-53. Christian Weinich. Where are you, Christian? You got smashed. And his team name's Blades. So I'm assuming they've been smashed so far this season as well.
My second team with no transfers. Obviously, I've been moving the captaincies about.
Yeah, yeah.
But my second team is 44 points behind my first team.
It's similar to me.
The 22 points extra per transfer on De Bruyne and Grealish feels like it's been very, very worth it. Listen, if I make 22 points on every fucking transfer I make this season, I'll take that all day long. So happy, content with the way it started.
Yeah. So we go into Overhaul now, James. I think we can all draw a line on what has been in the last 4 weeks in terms of the players you've owned or haven't. Obviously, we use the data and what we've learned in the first 4 game weeks to give us an indication of what we want to do moving forward. But I think there's a lot that we can learn, and also a lot that we can ignore and try and pick our overhaul teams. Now, first question for you is: have you picked? How close do you think you are to your overhaul team?
Nowhere near it.
Okay, because you wanted to wait until the transfer window closed.
To be honest with you, for those watching on YouTube, you can see me and Sudra over Zoom. We was meant to record a lot earlier this morning in the studio, and it's only the fact that I've had extra time this morning. I went, I'll do a rough draft.
Sure.
But what I did do last night was spend a lot of time looking at individuals, and I've basically got a short list of 33 players now.
Okay.
And I'll be picking my squad basically from those 33 players. So I've narrowed it. I've done a draft. I've got an idea of what I kind of want it to look like. The weekend, I want to do further analysis on fixtures, what I think may happen with the TV scheduling going forward. Then come back, and in time for next Wednesday, I'd like to be in a position, bar injury news, I know what I'm doing when we record next Wednesday. Just on TV, just very briefly. So basically, fucking ignore it at the moment. So we've got TV fixtures for, I'm going to say, match day 5 and match day 6. Them 3 o'clock games are not going to stay at 3 o'clock. They're going to move to different time slots, because we definitely are not going to have fans back in the ground for match day 5. The Premier League, the EFL are now putting major pressure on government. So last night, they started a petition that's got over 100,000 signatures. We did within a couple of hours yesterday, where it now has to be debated in Parliament in terms of the idea of getting fans back into football stadia. And at that point, that's when we might have 3 or 4 games at 3 o'clock on a Saturday. But as it stands now, every game is going to get moved. So where you've got like Leeds and Wolves at 8 o'clock on the Monday, that's brilliant. Don't worry about it. It's probably going to be a 6 o'clock game on the Monday as well. Don't overthink and worry too much about these things at the moment. And I would even warn that some of the fixtures that have been moved, say that have been moved from Saturday to Sunday, don't be surprised if they get moved back.
Yeah.
Genuinely. The ones that have been booked in, I don't think they will move. But to be honest, it wouldn't surprise me. It's unprecedented times. We don't really know what we're working with. But from an overhaul perspective, it obviously makes planning extremely difficult, because really, you'd want to be in a position here where you could probably look ahead and go, I've got my captaincy cover there for at least a month or so, 5 to 6 game weeks, probably taking us at this stage into December, basically. And we just haven't really got a clue.
There's a simple solution to that, though, right? If you spread your squad amongst as many players as you can from different clubs, then you're giving yourself the best chance to have captaincy coverage for most games.
Yes, but then that's the debate. Do you want to spread across 11 teams, which I think, or 10 teams, doesn't have to be 11, which is a very reasonable strategy to consider at the moment, given what we're working with? Or is it worth going, do you know what? I want to make sure I've got Salah and Van Dijk, or De Bruyne and Sterling, or Ayling and Dallas, and start doubling up on some of these things to start gaining an advantage, where right now, the general consensus is fuck the defense, let's go for it. I know, in my opinion, this will change. And people like Van Dijk and Laporte are all going to come back onto people's radar. And Van Dijk's obviously going to be considered at the moment. But take someone like Laporte, he's going to be in no one's team near enough, I think. That's kind of into the detail. And yet, once it's settled down for Man City, he's going to hit passing tiers in the same way like Laporte nearly every game. Yeah,
I agree with you on that. Yeah.
So most people are going to power into the attacking players up front. What's interesting is you've got people like Maupay, Watkins, even Calvert-Lewin, they're good players, they're good options, they're cheap. And I think that still allows in to have some stronger defensive players. I think going, for example, I've seen already a couple of drafts that people have done where their most expensive defender is like Ayling, for example, at 7 million or something. And I'm thinking, you're going to be swapping this around. The problem there is you go down that route and say you think, oh, I've got Salah up front. I'll move Salah to Van Dijk, and then I'll move Ayling or Dallas to a full. No, you can't do it.
No,
you're in trouble financially to.
I mean, flexibility
that kind of
is quite important. I don't know if you get your captaincies right, then I think that captaincy will cover off having cheap defenders. So obviously the problem is, the planning is particularly difficult. I'm going to so I've got a Overhaul draft ready, which comes with a big asterisk, James, which is that I spent 15 minutes doing it. So my strategy with this Overhaul was literally, there's a handful of players that I know I want. Let me see if I can fit them all into a team and then squeeze in 3 or 4 cheapies to make the budget work with people that aren't absolute trash. So I'm going to read out these 11 players, and what I want to know is how many of those are 11
are in my 33.
Are on your 33.
Okay, go on then.
And then what we'll do, obviously what we told everybody would do is go to the teams A to Z, well, A to W, and look at the best options and cheap options and what have you. And the reason, so this is interesting. If the majority of 10 or 11 of my 11 are in your 33, we're in this problem where I think there's going to be so many template teams. So many of us are going to have so many similar players. And that's why running down the teams A to W might give people ideas to think, actually, do you know what? Maybe not going with the template and being that little bit different might give us an advantage. For example, taking Son over Kane and that kind of thing. Mane over Salah, but whether or not you want to be risky. But right, Martinez...
We can't wait to hit these 11 names. Martinez, yeah. He's on the list, yeah.
Van Dijk is on the list.
He's on the list.
Stuart Dallas.
He's on the list.
Lamptey.
He's on the list.
De Bruyne.
Yes.
Antonio.
Yes.
Bruno Fernandes.
Yes.
Matthäus Klich.
No, he's not.
Rodriguez James.
Yes.
Harry Kane.
Yes.
Mohamed Salah.
Yes.
10 out of 11. Not surprising.
I have to say, Click is very borderline. To be honest, my view on that, just on Click, is a little bit that completely what Paul McNulty was shouting out on the Hub Pod on Sunday night was like, Dallas he's nearly first man in the team at the moment. And I think the only choice.
So you don't want to double up basically on Leeds?
Well, no, but that's what I was going to say. My choice is, do I go Ayling as well? That's one of the things I'm really going to think about. But I think if I removed Dallas and I went, right, I want to pick Ayling or Click, I think I'd go Ayling. That's part of the point. Okay. So that's why Click doesn't make it on the list. I think the team that I've got the most players shortlisted from is
on, James. Penalties. Click on penalties.
Yeah, I get that.
And 7.3, I think, is a good price for a Click as well.
Yeah, I'm not arguing. Yeah. It is. If you want to buy someone at that value, and it might even be that I'm struggling to accommodate someone at that value, and I go, well, I'll go back to that.
Click.
But I think what I'm saying is I'd go Ayling before I went Click.
Okay.
So that's why.
So 4-4-2 over a 5. I'm on a 3-5-2 at the moment. Yeah.
I wouldn't. It wouldn't be beyond reason that I ended up with something like Van Dijk, Dallas, Ayling. Is under consideration. That's the sort of thing I may be thinking about. The team that I've got the most players shortlisted from, I think, is Aston Villa.
Okay.
And it's part because I'm not sure. I mean, we can run through these A to W now. Technically, you don't start with Villa. You start with the other lot, don't you?
You do. Woolwich, as you like to call them. I mean, Arsenal for so many people is Aubameyang or bust, really. There's not really anybody else that comes into consideration that could be. Thomas Partey has come into the game at 8.3 million. But I think looking at the price that he's been given in FPL, for example, £5 million. £5 million is a defensive holding midfielder price, not an attacking midfielder price, which makes me think that he's going to be a defensive-minded midfielder, and 8.3 is not worth it for even Partey. So really, Aubameyang.
Partey is on given situation is capable of both passing and tackling tier, depending on the setup of Arsenal. But it would be no interest to me because I really don't know what's happening there at the moment. The only two I'd list, and I don't think I'm going to go with either of these, is Aubameyang. Obviously, is always worth having on a watch list or a short list, if you will, because of his capability, etc., and being the obvious go-to from Arsenal. I mean, at time of recording, he's sitting in basically 35% of teams, and I wouldn't be surprised if he's still in that sort of number when we start. And the major benefit for Aubameyang, of course, is they're in the Europa League. Games are going to be Sunday or Monday for a while. We basically know that, except for the first one that's against Man City, which is a Saturday night, which you wouldn't use him for anyway. So when you're judging Arsenal at the moment, you kind of need to judge them with Leicester and Tottenham, and you need to do that with the other two. Put the other two teams in the same bracket. I think it's a sensible idea to have coverage from two of those three teams. And that's the main reason why Aubameyang would still be of interest to me. But I think that's the only real reason at the moment. The fixtures coming up don't smell to me like I'd even want to captain him, particularly in the upcoming fixtures. I've got City, United, and a few other difficult ones coming up. The only one I listed from Arsenal, and I don't like it at all, really, is Gabriel. I kind of more listed it just to kind of shout out the fact that he has hit tier 2 passing in 3 of the 4 fixtures. And in the 4th fixture was Liverpool, which he didn't play. Now, what you got to be very, very cautious of, you need to consider this when you're looking at something like that. Because you look at Gabriel and you think, so hang on, he started 3 games. He's hit tier 2 passing in all of them. That's fucking great. And actually, Arsenal have been one of the better defensive sides so far this season, albeit they've only kept 1 clean sheet. He's obviously got the 20-point haul against Fulham, which makes his numbers look really high. But break it down. Why has he hit them passing tiers? Game week 1, Fulham, shit. Game week 2, West Ham, defensive. Game week 4, Sheffield United, let you have a lot of the ball. That's why he's hitting the passing tiers. So Gabriel in these upcoming games, his price might look appealing at 8 million. You think, oh, that's the Arsenal coverage. Do you see clean sheets? And no, I don't particularly see him hitting these passing tiers either. And, of course, in the Sheffield United game, they changed system a bit as well. So it might even be where he'd been sitting in the middle of the back 3 for those first 2 games. He's obviously seen so much of the ball. That might not even be the case going forward.
Yeah, we've spoken about when teams play with back 3, quite often it's the central of the 3 that ends up getting most of the passing points. I own Kieran Tierney from the start of the season at 8.1. So he's 0.1 more than Gabriel. He was on the left side. And he's frustrated because obviously he got injured in the warm-up against us. And then he didn't get any points in the Liverpool game. But he did pick up tier 1 passing in the first and the 4th games. And it's okay, but I think a bit expensive at 8 million. It doesn't really interest massively. Aubameyang is the go-to. And don't forget, obviously, man of the match, talisman. If he scores an Arsenal win, quite often he'll pick up man of the match.
Yeah, I mean, the most concerning statistic at all is obviously that he scored 4 less points than Lacazette in essentially 1 extra game.
Yeah.
That's a little bit concerning in itself. And I just don't see City, Leicester, United, Villa, Leeds, Wolves, Tottenham are Arsenal's fixtures up until mid-December. How often do I even want to put the armband on him? Maybe I'm just better off going somewhere else.
Yep.
Villa, I've got 5 players listed of interest.
Okay, I think you will have on your list that we talked about Martinez.
Yeah.
Matty Cash at 6.5 million.
No.
Didn't make it onto the list, eh?
No.
Because of Konsa, who's 6.1.
Ezri Konsa, 6.1, yeah.
Yeah, I can see that. I think Matty Cash isn't a bad shout, though. I mean, he's picked up 17 points. He got the 10-pointer against Fulham. And that was a clean sheet and tackle tier. Clean sheet against Sheffield United as well.
Konsa
they're cheap, right?
Konsa, it's a value thing where looking at the players in and around that value at 6.1, he's an absolute lock. He's going to play every week, and they've improved defensively dramatically. Matty Cash will have greater chance of tackle tiers and the occasional assist as well because he delivers a decent ball from the right-hand side. But Konsa then has the threat from corners, etc. Adam Hotcroft highlighted that to us pre-season. It's like, he's going to get a few goals and set pieces and whatnots.
He put a thread out, didn't he, a couple of days ago, yesterday, talking about Villa. And one of the things he did mention was that they've scored from a set piece in every game so far.
Sorry, I'm just trying to think through the goals against Liverpool and remember if they did or they didn't. This could take a while.
I don't know. He just put it in his thread, so blame him if he didn't.
I guess
but he did say they scored from a set piece pretty much every game.
Watkins' hat-trick goal would be the one. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I mean, Mings scored against Fulham and obviously Konsa scored against Sheffield United. So these things are worth bearing in mind. I just think Konsa, and Cash is nailed as well, by the way.
Yeah.
The 0.4 saving there could come in handy, but there's not a lot to split the two if you wanted to pay the extra. Plus, with Cash, I think what it comes to there is if you're going Cash or Martinez, you'll pick Martinez. But Martinez and Konsa, this is what I spoke about before in terms of comparing with, say, Leeds and going, right, so Meslier and Konsa, for example, would give you a nice little saving against Martinez and Dallas. It doesn't look like it's a lot, but that 0.5 might be the real difference between something further on if you think that's a better combination, for example. The other reason that I really highlight Konsa is because I don't think I'll go with Martinez. I've got eyes on a different goalkeeper, but it's certainly under consideration. He's going to be very, very popular, Martinez, definitely. And then the three attacking players, Grealish at 8.5, Barkley at 8, has to come into consideration if he's going to play that position he played against Liverpool.
100%.
And Ollie Watkins at 8.6. It's good, right? And Barkley and Watkins will be big differentials in this overhaul. People won't go near them. People will go to Grealish, I'm certain, if they want a Villa attacking player. That me saying that, he's going to draw people more to Grealish. You think, I want to cover it off. And Grealish has started brilliantly. The alarming concern with Grealish for me would be the Sheffield United performance, but it's the furthest one away. And you could say, right, it was their first game. Was he up to speed in terms of fitness? He also, bizarrely, as I spoke at the time, played quite a bit of that game on the right-hand side, and it just doesn't work for him. Him off the left with now Barkley inside is quite exciting. But it might be that Barkley's worth the less. Adam also thinks, and he said to us that he thinks, and they don't get many, but he thinks Barkley will be the penalty taker.
Yeah, quite possibly.
Watkins at 8.6 is interesting. It wouldn't have been in the past. But you got like Morpay at the same price. So these guys are easy to get away from this year if you don't like it. So I'll almost definitely have one Villa. And I wouldn't be surprised if it ends up being Konsa because it just becomes the budget. You're a lock. I'm not going to get any tearing off you, but you can sit there. You're cheap as. That might be my cheapest player, possibly.
Yeah. Just talk about Brighton. How many players from Brighton did you shortlist?
So Lamptey, Trossard and Morpay. Trossard is probably more the one for the going forward because there's a lot of exciting midfielders at sort of 8 million range or so.
Yeah.
If you need to escape, you can come down to him. That's probably more how I'd look at Leandro Trossard.
Yep.
Really good player. He's obviously got a goal, 2 assists, a man of the match. You got man of the match against Manchester United and thoroughly deserved, by the way.
With 0 attacking returns. That's impressive.
Tariq Lamptey's obviously in there and he's going to be very popular. He's going to be in a lot of teams. The concern I'd have with Lamptey is everyone thinks he's great. He's 6 million. He is going to play the majority of games. I also think the way that he's so 100 mile an hour, he's going to pick up injuries.
Well, he's flagged right now, right? He's got a hamstring problem already.
Yeah, he's pulled out the England under-21 squad, I think. I learnt this painfully with St. Maximin, an FPL footballer, our Newcastle correspondent, warned us about this with St. Maximin. He said, look, because the way he plays, he will get injuries. And I'm beginning to get that feeling with Lamptey as well. The other thing is, he's got 3 assists in 4 games, and he's only on fucking 14 points.
Because they leak so many bloody goals.
That's a bit concerning. He's going to get the odd tackle tier. He is going to get assists. I'd suggest 3 assists in 4 is completely unsustainable, particularly when 2 of them assists. I think 2 of them assists.
He won penalties for 2 of them.
Winning penalties, yeah. He got the exceptional man of the match performance in the win at Newcastle, and he's absolutely viable. They've got a very good run of fixtures. This is what is tempting about him. Defensive fixtures get much better for Brighton, basically up until around about match day 16, which is interesting. So he is a good option. I think if I want one, because those fixtures are easier as well, though, I'm tempted by Morpay. 4 goals, 4 games, million. 1 assist. Yeah. He's hit shot tier 2 once, shot tier 1 once, which, considering the fixtures they've had, is decent. He's also on the pens as well. And being on pens certainly fucking helps you in shot tiers, right? You only have to have another shot on target and you're hitting it.
Yep.
So Morpay's the one I probably fancy the most. Genuinely, I wouldn't be surprised if I start with Neil Morpay. It'll be close. I, I don't think I'll start with Lamptey.
What about Burnley? Burnley, I think, are almost an avoid. Um, Chris Wood and co are the same price as some of the strikers we've already mentioned and will mention in the future in terms of Mope and Watkins. I would pick any of those ahead of these guys. Midfield, I mean, Dwight McNeil 7.9 is similar to that Trossard bracket. Trossard's a bit cheaper. So he could be a consideration. Defensively, we don't know when they're going to get back to stability, really. So I didn't have any Burnley players on my radar whatsoever. You?
There's one Burnley player on my list. It's very straightforward. It's the goalkeeper.
6.7 million.
Yeah, it's decent price. To be honest, we're looking at buying goalkeepers at sort of 6.4-ish, 6.5-ish values, kind of what like Dean Henderson was last year and Pope was. Pope, I would have expected to get a bigger jump than this. It's a really good price. If Burnley can get to what Burnley are good at, he does two things for you. He gives you consistency of potential, clean sheet and save points, and he covers you for the no doubt awkward one or two fucking captaincies where you'll need something there during the season. I really think a good strategy here is to pick up a goalkeeper who will cover you for potential captaincies, i.e. so not from one of the biggest clubs, is capable of clean sheets, and is obviously capable of picking up save tier points. I mean, for me there's 4 on the list. So there's Pope, Martinez, as you said, Gator, and the one that I'm leaning to is Rui Patricio of Wolves. I know they'll get back and be better, and they're a good side, and there's nothing else in that Wolves team that I really fancy or want. So I think I'm going to end up leaning to Patricio. He's a good price as well. Pope at Burnley is absolutely viable. They could have Ben Mee back in game week 5. They walk into West Brom. They've got a better run of fixtures coming up soon. Genuinely, anyone wants to pick Nick Pope, I'd be absolutely fine with that.
I differ. I think I want to see it before I go near Nick Pope. I want to see Burnley improve before I go near them. I don't want to put faith in when Ben Mee's back, they'll get better. It's going to be a tough season for Burnley.
Why do you need to see a team? This is important as well. Why do you need to see a team like Burnley when it's exactly the same fucking team as it was last year? It hasn't changed. There's nothing new about it.
But what you're saying is clean sheets, right? They haven't been able to keep any clean sheets. Like if you're asking me,
because they've been messing Ben Mee and James Tarkowski before the weekend.
If you asked me, do I think that they'll get back to keeping clean sheets? I would say, yeah, probably. But I think there's also better keepers at that price. So that's also swaying me a little bit. As you've mentioned, Patricio's obviously cheap. Patricio's cheaper than Pope, right? I think he's 6'5", isn't he? 6'4", 6'5".
Rui Patricio is 6'9". He's more expensive.
He's a bit more. Chelsea. I've had triple Chelsea for half of this first part of the season. I don't think I'm going back to triple Chelsea, but Reece James was definitely a potential to carry through, but I've decided not to because I'd rather use the money further forward. We've talked about Pulisic. He's not only 9.1. I think that's a very cheap price for Christian Pulisic in this game. Werner, 11.1.
It's too much at the moment for Werner on the other side of this, isn't it?
When you look at Harry Kane at 11.7, I'll find a way of getting 0.6.
It's not even that. It's fucking Heung-min Son at 10.1, isn't it?
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
So,
yeah.
Yeah, no, not Werner at the moment. There were 2 that I've listed defensively at the same price, and they're difficult to split actually in Zuma and Reece James. Reece James is going to put a lot of people off because he didn't play against Palace, right?
Yep.
And it's a sort of game actually where they're going to have more of the ball and he should be able to get forward. You'd expect him to play even more. Obviously, Chilwell played left back. Azpilicueta played right back. They've still got Alonso and Emerson. They haven't been able to shift. So they're going to get some time at left back as well, which really muddies the Reece James. Kurt Zuma, I think, is going to lock himself in as first choice centre back with Thiago Silva. And he does pick up passing tiers a bit.
He's picked it up twice so far.
Yeah. He's had it twice. And I think, did he miss the West Brom game when they conceded 3?
Yeah.
And he obviously didn't pick up tiers when they played Liverpool, which A, it's Liverpool, and B, they played a long part of the game with 10 men. So it's completely understandable. One clean sheet in one of the other 2 that he's played against Palace. He scored against Brighton.
Scored 2, innit?
And he scored against Palace as well. But then all that told, 27 points doesn't sound enough. The way I've
27 for 3 games is not bad. It's 9 points a game.
Listen, you get 9 points every game from him. You fucking take it.
Yeah.
The point is, the way I explained it sounded like it was going to be a lot more. I think I would go Zuma over James, but there's still too many issues around them defensively. And it feels like as soon as they have a bad one, he'll change the team defensively. That's how it always feels to me. And then does he suddenly think, oh, well, I can't take Thiago Silva. Oh, fuck it. I'll play Christensen this week. I've still got Tomori on the books. Still got Rudiger on the books. So these guys are going to work their way back in. And it just leans me more so. This is where my mindset is now beginning to change from safety before overhaul. Let's go for it now. I'm very confident I'll start with Christian Pulisic. Literally just go for it from the off. And the reason for that is, one, I know his capabilities. B, I know Chelsea need him back in that team, which will perversely will free Werner up to possibly be a very good asset up front, by the way. And his price is amazing.
Yeah.
And awkward. And the reason it's awkward is he's in that group of sort of 8 to 9 million where there's loads of good assets, and he's the most expensive of them. He's potentially going to become awkward where you're like, how the fuck? I can't get to him for whatever reason. If I go to him and it's bad and it's fucked, I can get off quite easily. That's the point. To start with a good fixture against Southampton. United away doesn't hold any fears at the moment. I've got a good run for a little while. I feel like he's won. By the time I realise that I want him, their fixtures stiffen up and look worse, and it will never happen. So I really think I'll start with Christian Pulisic. He's the one I'm looking at as the real punt. And once he's in, he's captainable.
Yep.
No doubt about it, in my opinion. A top player. So 9.1 million, as Dan Cox said on Sunday night on Hub, like, how the fuck did he have such a price decrease from last season when he finished the season so well?
So well, yeah.
He's arguably one of the best price players in the game, in my opinion. He should be more, offers great value. I want to punt on him from the start. But for everybody else, you have to know it's a risk that it's 1 pointer from the start, right? But he will get in that team. Absolutely certain of it.
Agreed. Let's talk about Crystal Palace. The keeper Guaita is always a decent option at 6.6 million. He's a decent option. The defenders that you can possibly rely on getting into the team that you may want would be potentially Sacco, Van Aanholt, but I don't know if any are worth the extra over Guaita if you really fancy Crystal Palace defensively.
The reason Gator's really of interest as well is he does haul every now and again, and he hauls in the type of games where you would maybe end up having to captain him. Like, he's got 15-pointer against Southampton in game week 1. Shit. Palace Southampton on the telly, what am I going to do? And he covers you really well. These are the sort of games that he fucking hauls in if he does. He's picked up man of the match there in that particular fixture, save tier. He's also had save tier 1 twice as well, on top of that as well. And obviously they got bad at Chelsea at the weekend, but that doesn't normally happen to Palace. They don't concede too many. They're quite consistent. His capability of clean sheets. He has the trifecta, if you will, of potential clean sheets, potential save, and the value as well, right?
Yeah.
So,
yeah, decent.
He covers you for a team that you're not going to look at otherwise. Like Wilfried Zaha, he's under no consideration for me. It's quite a nice price. Do I want Zaha at 8? I think he's 8.9.
Zaha's 8.9.
Or Pulisic at 9.1.
Or
I know where I'd rather gamble.
James Rodriguez at 8.8 is cheaper. Jack Grealish at 8.5 is cheaper. Ross Barkley at 8 is cheaper. Antonio at 8 is cheaper. I think he's in that no man's land.
Zaha's the sort of player that, because of their fixture run, is really good for a long time. If he goes in, you'll end up sitting there for ages. Trust me, I know this from FPL last season.
Trust me, I know this from ages. FPL right now.
So I don't want to get stuck with that. And he's the sort of one who'll grate on me where I probably react in a way that I shouldn't. And I think, oh, fuck it, I've got to get him out. Or I keep sitting there because I go, oh, next fixture's all right. Next fixture's all right. If Gator was to sit in my squad till February, I go, yeah, that's all right. Because I don't want to fuck about with the goalkeeper. And as I said, I want the keeper from the coverage of a team that I'm not really interested in somewhere else.
Yep. You've got Everton coming up next. It's got to be Jordan Pickett out of the Netford, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah, Jordan Pickford. What a start.
There's got to be a number of options here that are pretty decent.
James, of course, 40 points so far. Calvert-Lewin, 47 points so far. Amazingly, I haven't got Richarlison on the shortlist, even though, and particularly it feels like in away games actually at the moment, oddly enough, is where he's going to be picking up his tackle tiers and stuff. We know he's a beast, right? He can do nothing in a game when he walks away with 5 points. And he's now playing with 2 very good players up front with him. The reason I think Calvert-Lewin would be worth the saving is he's simply looking at the shot tier numbers of Calvert-Lewin. Shot tier 2 once, shot tier 1 3 times. Is it shot tier every game?
Every game so far.
4 games played, 6 goals. He scored in every game. Minimum 9 points every game. Now, the fixtures they've had, we know they've been good. They've been decent. But he offered, if Calvert-Lewin was 10.8, it would be no interest to me. At that value at 9.3, great. And again, it's another one. If I decide to go him over, say, Maupay, which when you compare the two, I think I'd be going, yeah, I'd probably go Calvert-Lewin, actually.
I would as well, yeah.
But I can come down to Maupay, to Watkins, to Mitrovic, to... There's a couple of others down there as well. So Calvert-Lewin, I think, he's probably worth the shot. I don't know if I'm influenced in that because he's not in my FPL team. And I think, oh, I have him in fucking Sky then. But I tend not to play the game that way. So I'll either go with him or I won't. What puts me off most is the fact he's playing Liverpool in that first game. And I don't think that it should put me off now.
No, it shouldn't. I think you are buying him for the long term. You're not buying him for a short-term turnaround. Rodriguez is the other one that we mentioned that could be really interesting. And we'll talk about Alan as well, Joe Allen, as we want to call him, Alan. But James Rodriguez, the difference between James, who's on 40 points, and Dominic Calvert-Lewin, who's 47, so not too dissimilar, is that Rodriguez has hauled twice and blanked twice, whereas Calvert-Lewin has been consistent game in, game out. I think James Rodriguez has more potential because of his superstar name to pick up man of the match, because we know Sky like to gravitate towards that. I haven't figured out in my mind yet whether there is anything in the fact that Rodriguez will either haul or be blank and Calvert-Lewin will be consistent or not.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
It's interesting on James that the 2 blanks are obviously away from home. You read into that, I'm not saying, I mean, at Tottenham, he really should have got at least an assist in the game in game week 1. And he certainly didn't play badly at Crystal Palace either, right? But it is noticeable, yes, the 2 big hauls you've had have come in home games. And then we've already spoke. Everton's home fixtures, just to repeat for those who probably don't listen to the FPL content, home fixtures for a while are Liverpool, Manchester United, Leeds, Chelsea, Arsenal, City. I think that's their home games, like till the new year, basically. Put it this way, their home fixtures are tough. And then it does make me second guess with both of these guys. If I'm probably never going to be in a position where I captain one of them in a home game, am I going to be comfortable enough to do it in an away game where just psychologically on paper it's not quite the same as an attractive? And it might even be that, remarkably, that I go without them possibly. I would probably favour Calvert-Lewin personally, I think, but Rodriguez falls back into kind of the Pulisic idea where, do you know what, if it's wrong, you can come down quite easily. It's the case with both of them. I think most people will start with one of these 2 players, I think.
I don't think overall there's much in it either.
I'd just be conscious that it stiffens up for quite a while for them in terms of them home fixtures, and I'm not sure that you're ever going to use the armband on. Not that you have to at their valuations, by the way. You don't at all. But if you end up with the armband on them, it probably is going to be an away game. And so far, obviously, James hasn't returned them. No. Calvert-Lewin has scored a header at Tottenham and obviously one in the box against Crystal Palace. He did it shot tier 1 in both of those fixtures as well. So I think Calvert-Lewin would be the one that I'd lean to on just sheer consistency at the moment, I think. But then he's harder to fit in because you need so many forwards you want at the moment. It might be that Rodriguez becomes a default selection.
Luca Dean, not even in your thoughts at 8.6 million, too expensive.
No, and I'll be honest, neither is Alan. He's 8.1. It's an interesting price. What puts me off about him, no passing tier against Crystal Palace, is the sort of thing where you think, oh, we might be picking them up. I'd think, oh, I would expect him to get it in that game, and he didn't. West Brom at home, he's obviously picked up passing tier 2, denominator being 45 minutes against 10 men.
10 men.
And he also obviously had tier tackles in the Tottenham game and the West Brom game as well. I think passing's probably not going to be what we expected. Tackles, yeah, he's going to hit some tackle tiers, but it's not enough for me at 8.1 when I get Rodriguez for 0.7 more. I'd go for the goal scorer personally, I think.
Let's talk about Fulham or not. I'm not looking at a single Fulham player. Like
No,
defensively, they're not going to keep clean sheets. If there was like someone in that 4.95 million that was playing regularly and you really wanted your 2 points to tick along, yeah, great. But there's only one defender in that bracket, Le Marchand, and he ain't going to play. You don't know from the midfielders who's going to get you goals or any kind of returns. I mean, Loftus-Cheek is a good player, but I just don't see him being able to carry the entire team. And you've got Mitrovic at 8.7, who's in and around the value of Mopé and co. And you're not going to go near it either. I believe Fulham can be completely ignored here.
yes, they probably can. The only thing I would say is for those who are looking for someone as I don't know, maybe a placeholder for someone else, possibly, perhaps till say Liverpool recover defensively or something. Sheffield United, Palace, West Brom, West Ham is decent for fixtures to the naked eye. I would suggest Sheffield United and Palace and yourselves in the fourth of those games is more difficult trying to get attacking output than what it might look on paper. But it's a decent run if you wanted to have a look at Mitrovic. The only player I want to mention from Fulham, and it's just for reference really, is that Tom Kearney has hit tier 2 passing in 3 of the games.
Okay.
Which is quite impressive, actually.
Yeah, very much so.
And defensively, they have brought a few boys in. They brought Anderson in from Lyon. And the one to keep an eye on, maybe, and I don't think you can start with him, but the boy they've got from Man City, Adaru Biayo, it was a young boy who's just never broken into the Man City team. I think he'll get into the Fulham team. He's 5.2.
It's cheap.
He's also going to have fucking minus points most game weeks. So not for me, but keep an eye on it because he will become a regular at 5.2. And I bet his name, if people can pronounce it, which I can't, probably will come back around.
Leeds United, plenty to look at here. But obviously you can only have a certain number of players. But Meslier definitely comes into consideration.
Well, listen, you can pick the old Leeds team if you want, mate.
Ayling and Dallas come into consideration. Click, definitely. Harrison, I don't think is necessarily a bad shout. Because it's Sky and passing tiers exist, Calvin Phillips becomes a good consideration. Bamford is a good option as well. He's cheaper than Mopé and all of these guys.
Ayling and Dallas are the main two for me. Dallas, something that'll have to happen to him from not to be in my team, although he should have been sent off against Man City, by the way. Ayling may come with him. I really like the pair. I mean, Ayling's got tier 2 tackles twice and tier 1 tackles twice. Fucking hell. That's decent, right? Ayling's also hit passing tier once. Dallas has hit tier 2 tackles twice, tier 1 tackles once. Dallas has got a shot tier. The fuck? Because he played in midfield. He played in midfield against Sheffield United. And interestingly, if Bielsa thinks that Wolves are going to play with, say, Jimenez and Traore up front as a front two, Dallas will play in midfield again against Wolves. They'll change that back up. So in Dallas, for a number of reasons, just slightly edges Ayling. It's that 0.6. You can't.
It's a lot of money, that 0.6.
You can't really justify paying the 0.6 extra for Ayling over Dallas when they both look like a threat, right? And they're both hitting the tackle tiers. But it's part why I think because of that, everyone's going to overlook Ayling. And it's possible, I think, to go with both. So they both offer great value. If Ayling played for Wolves and was having the same sort of statistics for example, I don't think we'd hesitate, would we? He'd be in as well. And what we've seen from Leeds so far, although they shouldn't be compared because stylistically they're very different to Wolves and Sheffield United, but what we can expect from this year in terms of their output, I think is beginning to look similar. Yeah. Defensively, probably going to concede a few more, if I'm honest. But
a few more.
No. I don't think it'd be a lot more because they worked so hard, Suj. Yeah. Offensively, they're going to probably score more. So these guys are really interesting. I wouldn't rule out going Ayling and Dallas personally. And I guess because that's in my mind at the moment, I'm ruling out the others of Click and the like, who, again, I think if I need to get there, I can get there. Click's obviously got the penalties, but otherwise, these guys probably aren't going to hit the tiers.
He hit tiers in the first two games and didn't in the second two. Did click in terms of passing and what have you. So
Click hit
going to be.
Parsons here in that too. First
He
two, is
hit
that right?
tier points. I need to remember what points he hit in the first two, but I do remember him hitting tier points.
You got me scrambling
No,
for a double check.
no tackle tier in game week 1. So it was an assist in game week 2. So yeah,
I
you're
knew
right.
I knew I shouldn't have been scrambling.
Let's talk about Leicester City. Now you mentioned 3 teams with ropey league action to consider. Make sure you have coverage from Tottenham, which we're going to get to, Arsenal and Leicester. Because of the price differential here with some of the Leicester assets, and that there's potentially one midfield asset that we might want to talk about, I feel like I'd rather have Tottenham and Leicester coverage than, say, Arsenal and Tottenham or what have you. But it's a tough one. I know from my point of view, it would be Castagne because he has been playing particularly well. We don't know when Pereira's back. He's also very expensive.
She was back because he'd go straight in. I wouldn't give a fuck.
Yeah,
Mate.
I mean, he's very expensive at 9.2. So then you have to think about if you want to get to Pereira further down the line, you're going to need to make 2 transfers or find some money from somewhere.
Possibly.
It's not like you. I don't know if you don't want to put a placeholder in a Trent or something.
I don't think he's the sort of player you'd be desperate, and he wouldn't be in the. I think if you knew Pereira was going to play this weekend, a lot of us would take the chance on him. Say like I'm probably going to do with Pulisic, but if you hear in 3 or 4 game weeks, Pereira's going to be back this weekend, I don't think it's going to become I have to buy him now. You want to wait because you want to know what they're going to do with Justin and Castagne and the system and stuff, right? It could. I think there's a small chance that Pereira ends up playing right midfield, which it just becomes frightening then in terms of his capabilities. But then he might not hit the tackle tiers in the way that he used to, so it can go both ways.
Harvey Barnes, though, has got to be on your list.
What you say about the Arsenal, Leicester, Tottenham, as I mentioned earlier, is absolutely spot on. There is only one player on this list for me, and yes, it is Harvey Barnes, who hit shots here in the first 3 games, was extremely unlucky not to hit proper returns. And it might have gone past a lot of people, but he scored a great goal against West Ham at the weekend that was very fractionally offside. And suddenly he's looking at another return. Suddenly, instead of a 2-pointer there, he's looking at 8, 9 points, for example. 27 points from the 4 games when they're indifferent is good. I feel he's the standout. He's the sort of one when they're playing a mediocre team as well. And I think, I need the captaincy there. I'm almost more inclined to want to punt on him than I would be on Vardy in certain games.
Yep. That price differential of 2.6 million between Barnes and Vardy is just
that's what the comparison is. I'm comparing Barnes directly to Vardy because I don't want both. So that's almost the comparison I'm making. And for me, it's Barnes all over. Agreed
with you, definitely on that. I may end up with Harvey Barnes because I think it might be a situation where I can't afford Rodriguez, for example. I need to find 0.6. And I think Barnes at 8.2 is a good cover off on someone like James Rodriguez at that price.
With some of the fixtures Tottenham have got beyond sort of match day 8, if you're just relying on, say, just Kane or Son from that Tottenham, Leicester, Arsenal quota, I think you're possibly taking a risk in terms of where you're going to land on good potential captaincies or not. Because look, by then as well, we might genuinely back to 2 games on a Sunday, for example. But with the Europa games, Leicester and Arsenal are going to fall into it as well. Arsenal just doesn't really interest me at the moment. And once I put all that together, Harvey Barnes nearly becomes a lock in my team, I think. I think he's worth the gamble.
Yep. Liverpool. Liverpool. Okay, so we know Van Dijk and his strengths in this game. Trent and Robbo are a bit cheaper. No consideration to double up or triple up right now with Alisson's injury. Anything that makes you want to go to Robbo or Trent in this game ahead of Van Dijk at all?
The Liverpool double up defensively is definitely on my radar.
You think so?
Definitely on my radar. He's definitely on my radar because I don't think anyone else is going to do it.
Yeah, I can see.
I know that Alisson might be back in 2-3 weeks.
Yeah, he might be, but not for me. Not that amount of money. 10.6 and 10.2 is not a consideration for me at the moment. But Van Dijk is basically a lock, and then the rest will follow.
A lot of people are not going to go with Van Dijk now. A lot. If this game had price drops in the way FPL does, Van Dijk would fall off a fucking cliff at the moment. There's a lot of people who their recency bias is the last thing they've seen and they're going to shit themselves and not do it. Van Dijk will almost definitely be in my team. I can't believe that he won't. At the moment, I would go Robertson over Trent.
Yep.
looking closer at the data, there's a very clear reason for that for me. And actually, it's the passing numbers. Where at the moment, playing next to Van Dijk and linking with Mane when he does play, Robertson's actually getting quite a bit more than Trent. Trent's passing numbers were great last year. It looks like this year it might even out a bit more, and Robertson will actually pip him possibly the way it started so far.
He's had passing tier 2 in the Chelsea and Arsenal games and passing tier 1 against Villa. So that's not bad for Robbo to get those passing tiers.
Robertson's got 3 more points than Van Dijk.
Mm. Yeah.
Admittedly, that's from the attacking returns. Because obviously Robertson scored against Arsenal and obviously assisted Van Dijk's goal against Leeds. But the thing is with Van Dijk, he's still at passing tier 2, 3 times out of 4? Mm. And the game that he didn't is a fucking anomaly game of football because it's against Leeds United and the amount of men they leave in high positions up the pitch.
Yeah.
So in spite of Van Dijk is still going to hit basic rates of 5-5-5-5-5 without clean sheets. He's still a goal threat. And they've got fixtures coming up like Sheffield United at home and West Ham at home, which I can comfortably see being clean sheets if they defend properly. If they defend properly, it won't matter who's in goal, right? If they play the game properly, we've seen games like when they played Palace in the restart period, you or I could have played in goal with Liverpool, still would have finished 4-0, wouldn't make a difference. So if they play properly, it won't be as big a deal as everybody's making out, in my opinion. Yes, the Everton fixture now looks quite scary for them. But actually, it could then be West Ham at home, Sheffield United at home, and then Alisson might be back, and then the problem's over, and then you probably want it back. So Van Dijk will definitely start for me, and I will seriously consider starting Robertson as well. And Salah, because of the same reasons I've just mentioned, those two, depending on how it might fall, and I need to have a closer look at that, could be standout captaincy.
Like Salah's clearly in for me at the moment, definitely.
So he's got to be considered on that alone.
One of the things we talk about with Van Dijk is his baseline being 5 points.
Yeah.
In the midfield, you've got Thiago, who managed to get his passing tier 2 in half a game. The difference with him is I feel like his baseline is 5 points. His ceiling quite often will also be 5 points, whereas Van Dijk's got the clean sheets to add on top of it for a Brucey bonus day. So Thiago's an interesting one. I think you're right. If you really want someone who's safely going to get you 5 points every week, he's probably as good as anyone.
What I'd say on Van Dijk at the moment is I'd probably take it as I don't really want to be wasting what would, because of his valuation, if I want to go back to him, it's almost certainly going to cost me 2 transfers to get there.
Yep.
I'm going to have to remove something somewhere else. So it's going to cost me 2 transfers to get him in for a player that I know that I'm going to want at some point over these next 2 or 3 months or so. And what it'll be at the moment is, whereas probably he would have been an auto captain for me in them West Ham, Sheffield United games, I might just not do it. And he'll just sit there and I'll captain somewhere else. And it's that reason why Salah comes into strong consideration for me, because generally speaking, I'm going to be very happy to captain Van Dijk in the majority of games. Obviously at the moment, because of Alisson, I'm uncomfortable. And that's why Salah comes into the conversation for me at the moment.
Let's talk about Manchester City. How many names are on your list, James? I'm interested, fascinated. 2. Just 2 from the free scoring. Manchester City says a lot, right? Kevin De Bruyne is 1, is it?
No, he's not on it. No.
Yeah.
He's been way too shit. Everyone tells me last couple of weeks.
I'm going to guess that you've got Foden down at 8.2 as the other.
Nah, he'd be miles off consideration, to be honest.
Laporte then at 10.3.
Yeah, Laporte.
We talked about him at the start.
Laporte, because he can hit them passing numbers exactly the same way as Van Dijk, if not more. Laporte will have games where he hit passing tier by half time and stuff when they start getting things right. And I think once this settles down with Ruben Diaz, and we can't judge him on the Leeds game, as kind of as just said with Van Dijk, they're different to everybody else. It might be that they settle down and they become a decent team again defensively. It's possible. And again, I'm conscious of that because I know nobody's going to buy these guys. So what happens if I go the opposite way and I start with, and it's risky, but if I start with Van Dijk and Laporte, everybody else is going to be in a position they can't get there. And suddenly it all turns and you go, oh, fucking hell, they've had 18 points. Shit, I want to get there. And you can't. And so I'm trying to look for advantages like that. I think it's extremely unlikely I would go with Laporte because Kevin De Bruyne is just such a safe coverage for Man City. But I am thinking about it, and I will look at what a team looks like manoeuvring that, how it might work. So Laporte comes under consideration. Diaz is 9.1. It could work out that he's very much worth that 1.2 million saving. He could end up being a great asset, you know. So one to watch closely.
Manchester United.
Sterling, I would never captain over De Bruyne, so
doesn't make it worthwhile.
Not for me. Not at the moment.
No. Manchester United, the red half of Manchester. There was so many good assets at the back end of last season that just don't exist now. I mean, defensively, this blew my mind, James. You got Lindelof, Wan-Bissaka, Maguire, Luke Shaw, and Eric Bailly. Between the five of them, what's their gross points total in Sky over 3 games so far this season? 5 players.
8?
-1. You've got Lindelof's got 4 points, Wan-Bissaka's got 1, Maguire's got 0, and then Shaw and Bailly is both sitting there on -3. That's a net total of defensive points of -1 from Manchester United's 5 defenders over 3 games. That's rubbish.
Only one player makes the list for me
Bruno.
at the moment. It's Bruno. And I think the way it's going at the moment, I'm probably going to go without. And the reason I'm going to go without is quite simple. Newcastle, at the moment, I can't see where I'd captain him. I wouldn't captain him over De Bruyne versus Arsenal, for example. And I'm probably going to have other options with what I've seen so far. Then it's Chelsea, Arsenal, Everton. Then it gets, they never run of 3 decent fixtures. Then it gets tougher again. All the way up to, I mean, they've got West Brom, Southampton, West Ham, end of November, early December. That's the easy spell, by the way. Yeah. You know, December is City, Sheffield United, Leeds, Leicester, Wolves. You could even go, oh, Sheffield United. But Sheffield United defensively are still one to be trusted, right? So I think at the moment, I'd literally look through that whole period and I think, how many times am I going to captain him? And he hasn't hit, so far this season, he hasn't hit any shots here. And that's the key thing. When I go back to the game against Tottenham at White Hart Lane in June, where I was like, saw him, I was like, this guy is just popping off shots and playing through balls at every opportunity, no hesitation. Can you remember him having a shot from outside the box this season? Because I can't. I've watched every minute of their games.
No.
So his returns have come from the pens, right? There's also rumours, and they are only rumours, that part of the reason he came off at the weekend because it was a serious bust-up at half-time. They've obviously added players to the squad in the likes of Cavani, who will obviously cover for Martial early. Cavani, by the way, you know, if you wanted someone to punt on for the first 3 games, no one else will be on him. The concern is, I think Fernandes is such a go-to for United that at some point you will want it. That's what's haunting me. I think, oh, fucking hell, do I really want to go without a Manchester United player completely? Sure, you know, with the amount they're on the telly and stuff as well. Admittedly, because they're in the Champions League, they're probably only likely to have Saturday and Sunday games till December. So from a coverage perspective, it shouldn't be an issue. But at some point, I probably am going to want it. And when I do want it, he's probably the go-to. And it will be difficult at that value if I go without to then get to him unless I'm removing a forward.
Or maybe you're talking about 2 or 3 premium defenders there in Laporte and double Liverpool. You could always downgrade one of those to find you the money as well.
But then if I end up going with, say, Van Dijk and Laporte, I probably am definitely going back 3, probably. Yeah. So then actually to remove, you can't just remove it straight. I need to make 2 changes again, don't I?
Yeah.
So that's the only thing. At the moment, I think I'm going to go without. And it's basically because on the shot numbers.
Yeah, I don't mind.
It's disappointing.
I don't mind Rashford or Martial or Greenwood as and when they're fit and United are firing, but that's going to take a time. I find it fascinating that Cavani's come in and is more expensive than all of them. 10.7 when you've got Rashford at 10.5, Martial at 10, Greenwood at 8.7. It just doesn't make any logical sense to me.
If he plays every week, it's a fair price, by the way. Edison Cavani's still got it, trust me.
Let's wait and see.
But I don't think he'll play every week. But because of Martial's red card against Tottenham, he probably is going to go straight in.
Yeah.
And it'd be interesting because he offers him something very, very different. He still works hard. Like, don't be thinking because of his age, like he's sloppy. He'll still work hard for the team. He's a really good all-round forward. I've liked him for a long time. I think United have panicked in buying him and they shouldn't have. But it doesn't mean that he can't be a good asset for you.
No, of course. Newcastle United. I'm going to guess that you've got 1 name down from Newcastle.
Yeah, who is it?
Saint Maximin.
No, I ain't fucking doing that again. To be honest,
8.1 million he's priced at.
For me to buy Alan St. Maximin, I need to know he's going to play centrally.
Okay.
And until I know that that's definitely going to happen, it's no interest to me. And therefore, I'm not interested in any Newcastle players otherwise, because I know he's the standout. I know, like the Burnley game, when he does turn it on, he's going to hit man of the match and stuff. Callum Wilson doesn't appeal for me at 9.5 when I can have Calvert-Lewin for cheaper, I'm afraid. Yes, he's on pens. Yes, he'll score goals, etc. But Newcastle, in terms of overall, I mean, shots this year is way down on, I think, everybody. So no interest in Newcastle. There's nothing defensively that I think is cheap enough.
Not even Dubravka when he comes back and is fit again. Well, he's a decent point scorer if he's fit.
Dubravka, when he's fit, yeah, he's a decent shout at 6.7 million. You ain't getting him now, are you?
No,
and you're also not going to waste the transfer on him. So he's only one that will come back around for people pre-second overhaul if they have like an obvious Monday night captaincy or something. And you think,
maybe. I think if there's a fixture,
doing shit, I'll move to it.
If there's a 2 or 3 fixture gain, and my keeper, whoever I end up going with, is particularly garbage, I wouldn't mind using a transfer on that. But that would be a wait and see. I don't know. I think Callum Wilson, if he finds consistency, and Everton do have a hard run of fixtures, isn't the worst shout. Ryan Fraser's coming at 7.9. He's quite a bit cheaper than some of the other midfield assets in that 8 to 9 bracket. Well, not quite a bit, but he's a little bit cheaper. If you're scrimping and saving and need to find someone at that price, I don't think Ryan Fraser's too bad a shout either. Having said that, I'm not picking him. So,
no, not for me of interest. And onto the Blades, there's only one person that interests me here as well, and it's a really dodgy one, which is Jack Robinson.
Yeah, 4.9
million.
I'm not going anywhere near any of that stuff. Paul on the Hub podcast talked about flexibility and having the ability, and we've talked about it so much, where you want players at prices where you can move in one transfer. 4.9 is not that.
No, he's absolutely not. But if it's right and he starts, we'll all be looking at it. And I think he will. Tomorrow, interesting, is probably worth Sky Players. If you're thinking about Robinson, I'll quiz Tomo FPL Blade on this on our podcast tomorrow in terms of what he sees. What concerns me is I think he's got the favouritism over Ampadu because the way they want to play with the centre backs doing the overlapping and stuff. Robinson is more capable of doing that from the left side. When O'Connell didn't play during the restart period, it was Robinson that covered there. O'Connell, we think, is possibly out for the season. So this isn't something that's going to come back and bite in a month or two. What concerns me more than anything with it is I don't know enough about the 2 other lads they bought in the summer, in Bogle and Lowe. I don't know enough about them, and I need to find out stuff about them. And if I find out that there is no chance of them playing left-sided centre-half, I might gamble with Jack Robinson. And I might even look at it and go, if it gives me enough power that I'm sitting there with Van Dijk and Laporte next to him, for example, and bearing in mind no one's keeping fucking clean sheets, everyone keeps saying, I might just hang around with 10 players for a while.
Let's talk about the Saints then. Southampton have a few interesting players, again, because of the price points. I think Kyle Walker-Peters is not a bad price at 7.3 million. He'll tick along nicely. I'd go to Stuart Armstrong at 7.1 ahead of Kyle Walker-Peters, though. And Danny Ings is a good player, but I just think he's a little bit overpriced here at 9.9. When, again, we've talked about the cheaper strikers that are available.
The Walcott signing has really put me off Armstrong.
Yeah, really I did think about that. But let's be honest. Who would you play in your... If you were manager of the team, who would you
Armstrong.
Play?
But then he's also going to be the first player coming off the pitch, right? He's regularly going to be... Not that it matters in this game in terms of you get the 2 points whether you play a minute or 90 minutes. But I'm not getting anyone in the Sky for the sake of the 2 fucking points. I want returns. I want them on the pitch for a significant period of games. So, yeah, that would be a concern for me at the moment, that Walcott coming on for him is the first change that Southampton will regularly make. Would be a bit scary for me.
Yeah, you'd hope he'd returned by then. It scares me less, I'll be honest with you. I see Walcott as coming in as very much just a squad player. I don't know why
they bought him. We've got FPL Gaffer on next week. We'll talk to him about it as well.
I don't see it either. I just see him as very much a squad player, and I don't see any reason why Armstrong would be losing his place or what have you. Yeah.
If I decide to go with a spread of, say, 10 or 11 teams, Danny Ings stays on the radar. It's a good price at 9.9 million. He's got 30 points in 4 games. Absolutely fine. Yes, admittedly, one was a dodge pen. So it's shots here, 1 twice. He's had a man a match, 3 goals in 4. It's okay. We know as well that generally they're as good away from home as at home, if not better. You wouldn't surprise anybody if they went to Chelsea and did some damage in game week 5. So don't worry too much about the difficult away games and stuff. Danny Ings is one who's in for consistency. If you were to consider him, and there's a time and a place where you can captain him, as people successfully did at, say, Watford away during the restart period and stuff. His price is great. I wouldn't rule him out. I just feel, to start with, I'd probably more need the power of, at the same value, basically, Heung-min Son, for example. That's all. But Danny Ings really would be the only Southampton player under consideration for me. That's why he was on my list.
Yeah. And you mentioned Heung-min Son. We should talk about Tottenham. I struggle with the defensive assets.
Fuck
I don't
that.
see. Yeah. I mean, if you were
if
going to
Sergio Aurier played every week,
maybe. But if you were going to go defensive and you really, really wanted an expensive set and forget, and you wanted to go to Lloris, then by all means knock yourselves out. But at 7 million, I have no understanding of why you would want to do that. Even the midfield, James, doesn't appeal to me massively. I don't know where I would go to try and get any kind of value. Lucas Moura is the most attacking, maybe Lascelles. So, but when you've got
Gareth
the option,
Bale.
He's a forward though, right?
Yeah, but Gareth Bale's going to take one of these teams out, fucking
yeah,
players
exactly.
out the team, mate.
And then you look at Son, Kane, Bale. That's fine. If I don't have any other Tottenham players and I have 1 or 2, and it's one of Son and Kane, done. Really done.
A shout for Højbjerg, because there's a lot of guys talking about him at the moment. It was the first player, I think, ever to have over 100 passes at Old Trafford as an away player in the Premier League at the weekend. So that it's fair going.
Was that the 10 Men United? Just checking.
Yes, of course it was. And I'll come on to that. Don't worry. I didn't think he would be capable of hitting passing tiers regularly enough, because
one of those passes was a through ball to Aurier that was very nice.
Oh, it was a brilliant assist. I didn't even know he had that in his locker. It was a brilliant pass. One of the reasons pre-season he was under no consideration for myself was the idea that Tottenham playing 2 direct, right? Get it into the front men as quick as possible. We're actually starting to play a bit of football now.
Yeah.
And it's numbers like Højbjerg's numbers that actually highlight that and go, yeah, shit. Tottenham are playing football. Yeah. Exactly. However, passing tier against Everton, we're behind. It was pedestrian on the ball. Everton played extremely well on the counter-attack with us. It was always going to have a lot of the ball. Newcastle at home, you're always going to have a lot of the ball. Probably against them more than anyone, actually. And Manchester United away is obviously, because of what we've already highlighted in terms of the red card, had a massive influence. So, yeah, is it passing tier 3 times? But actually, on reflection, you look at every circumstance there and go, yeah, so he fucking should, because Harry Winks would have, in similar circumstances, if he was playing that same role as what Højbjerg has been playing. So he's not a consideration for me at 7.4, because I don't need Tottenham coverage, because I know that I'm having something from the front. And you've almost... You fucking brave if you don't go one of them 2 front boys at the start.
I'm going with Kane at the moment, and what I might do is once I feel fairly settled, is swap Kane for Heung-min Son and see what my 1.6 million buys me elsewhere in upgrades. And I actually think that Son, for that price difference, Son is a better option than Kane.
The thing with Harry, and what will the more experienced Sky players will know this, right? Harry's shot numbers are getting back to what they were 2-3 years ago. And that will excite the Sky players, knowing that, yes, Son got 4 at Southampton. It's the capability of knowing that Kane can do this. If he's getting the shots and the chances, he can really fucking go off big time. People have experienced that before. So I think the more experienced players will lean into Harry Kane because of that. Plus, you got some who had the bad experiences with the Son red cards last year. Yeah. Particularly as they were both on Sundays. We know people who bought Son on the day, both times he got sent off last season, for example. There's 1 point between them so far. And that makes you think, well, I'll go with Son then, 10.1. It's worth saying that Son's had 45 minutes less as well. That doesn't affect the numbers, but 45 minutes less on a pitch.
I like to look at consistency. So Kane's returned in 3 of the games, Son's returned in 2, but then, like you said, one of those games that Son blanked, he only played half of and probably was injured for part of it. So It's tough.
I think this will come down to your team setup, etc. I genuinely, there's not one I would say definitely get over the other. I think it looks obvious to say the 1.6 million saving for Son, you should go for Son. And that's probably what I'm going to end up doing. But I actually think this group of 4 fixtures, not the West Ham game, but the 3 games afterwards, particularly Burnley away and West Brom away, scream Harry Kane. And the Harry Kane game at Burnley at the moment is a Monday night and currently scheduled the only Monday night. So you're thinking not just about, say, the block of 4 fixtures or beyond. You're also thinking, I'm going to put the armband on one of these guys against Burnley in match day 6 as it stands. Who do you want to put that armband on? In that fixture, I think about Phil Bardsley up against Heung-min Son and don't really fancy it. I think it's probably Harry Kane. But if you're struggling at all financially, going with Sonny is obviously, of course, absolutely fine. It's really close.
Longer term, I do think Son at 1.6 million is better value. But in my current draft, I have Harry Kane. I think that says it for everybody, right? That how hard that dilemma is going to be.
You say, for example, these in terms of fine margins to sum it up. So Kane against Newcastle hit shot tier 2, right? Played the 90 minutes. He also assisted Lucas Moura's goal. Son hit post and bar. Now, if those 2 go in, what's the difference?
Yeah, it's true.
Then you're looking at Son being 15, 20 points ahead. So
it's tough. I'm probably, like you said, going to start with Kane, and then if timing allows, and I need to find some money elsewhere, then end up with Heung-min Son. 2 more teams to go, James. I think we're doing all right. We've rattled through them fairly well. West Ham.
There's 3, mate. I mean, it's easy to forget West Brom, but actually, I've got a player on my shortlist.
Sorry. I need to scroll down one more, don't I? West Brom.
Callum Robinson at 6.2 is not of interest to me. I like the idea of it at that price and OOP, but I just don't see goals in him.
Yeah.
The only one I'm going to make a note of, because he's cheap, is 5.7, is Dario O'Shea. And I only highlight him because he's hit tackle tier 2 twice. And the upcoming run of fixtures, Burnley, Brighton, Fulham, isn't bad. Mm-hmm. That's it.
Short term.
I won't be having Mateus Pereira on the other side because nobody else is on his fucking wavelength, unfortunately.
No. Let's talk about West Ham then. How many people from West Ham have made it onto your list?
1. We can end this quite quickly.
Antonio?
Yeah, he's absolute lock. There's no way I won't have him unless he's injured.
I agree with you. Just looking at the price.
He's almost first player in the squad, genuinely.
Bowen, Fornals, these guys are not cheaper enough to justify going to them. So yeah, I don't like them. I would say though, however, if we're talking about Tariq Lamptey, a good value at 6, but you don't think he's consistent, the new boy Kufau's come in at 6.1. I think he's basically a lock ahead of Ryan Fredericks, obviously out right now, and he's come straight in ahead of Ben Johnson.
Crap it.
Yeah. I think Kufau could be all right. You know, I want to see more from him. But if you were looking for someone at that price point and didn't want to go to Tariq Lamptey because he's got a flag at the moment, I think 6.1 for him might be all right. He ventured forward a little bit, not massively, but a little bit.
You don't care at that value.
No,
Did he get tackled to or anything at the weekend?
No, he didn't. He just got the clean sheet and a yellow card.
That's right. Listen, you take that at that value.
Yeah, 6 points is fine, mate.
I've just spoken about Esri Konsa at the same value, right? And saying that I know there's no bonus tiers in it or anything. He'd be under consideration. So yeah, then that would probably be with me going no Villa. I'm definitely going Antonio. I wouldn't even. I don't even think I'd look at a draft without him at the moment.
It's interesting because if you look at our defenders, I mean, the highest point scorers, you've got Creswell, Masuaku, even Balbuena. Between them, I'm just having a look here. I was pretty sure of this. How many tier points do you think they have?
Oh, there'd be none.
0, exactly.
Yeah, there'd be none.
So Masuaku's 6.5 is cheap.
Masuaku get you the odd assist. I would probably rather play that.
Points.
I'd probably rather pay that. But then what are you going to change system once the Fulham game comes around in match day 8 and stuff, which we've spoken about as a possibility?
Yeah. It's funny for defensive assets at that kind of level, I prefer tier points than attacking returns, just for the consistency of it. Like a Dallas picking up passing or whatever he does in every single game appeals more to me than the odd assist or the odd goal from somebody else. The consistency of tier points is more important.
Yeah, there is an unpredictability about tackling, though, in the sense that for whatever
Tackling for
reason,
sure, but passing tiers is about style of play. Quite.
well, passing tier are quite easy to predict. Tackle tier, less
Mm.
so.
Yeah.
To be honest, it's the hardest one to kind of control in terms of what will happen. You'll get more randomness with tackle tier than passing and shooting tier, for example. But passing tier is the easiest one to read. It's worth saying, though, we can get overly obsessed in this game in terms of tiering. Mikel Antonio is a midfield player playing OOP, and he's going to score goals. You only have to look at his 3 returns in 3 difficult games that have just gone against Arsenal, Wolves, and Leicester. It's 3 on paper, difficult fixtures. You go, I don't fancy him now. How many points he got from the 3 games, Serge? You can tell everyone.
Just from those 3 is 34 points.
Yeah.
No, 31 points, sorry.
Yeah, so it's a 10-point a game, right? It's decent. And I know a few people who captained him, particularly against Wolves, actually. And you can look at the next 3 and go, oh, well, it's fucking Tottenham, Man City, Liverpool. West Ham are going to sit off. West Ham are going to play direct into him. Antonio will score in one of them games, at least. Yeah. I would bet money on it.
Chop tiers in all of them as well.
Yes, that as well. And then
2 man of the matches.
And then there's better fixtures. I don't want to be scrambling to get him in for when you play Fulham in match day 8, mate. He's just going in now.
And last but not least, the Wolves, as my son likes to call them. Yeah.
I really think I'm going to go with Rui Patricio. I think it's a solid reliability of knowing what they are capable of defensively. It's also knowing that he's a good goalkeeper. Also fucking helps, I think, from the mental state of thinking, generally, if he gets beat, it's not going to be a mistake. You wouldn't look at any of the goals at West Ham and think, oh, he's made a clanger there or anything, would you?
No.
Shit happens. So I think he's reliable from that perspective. He'll hit save tiers, as I said, as well, occasionally. But generally speaking, when they get a clean sheet, he's probably going to be a 9-pointer. He does tend to get save tiers more when they're conceding. So you do get that little compensation, like he's got a 3-pointer against Man City, despite conceding 3 goals, for example, because it's save tier 2 saves. Just another one I want to shout out defensively is the new guy at Nori. I might be pronouncing that completely wrong. Who might be the Vinagre replacement. It's coming at 5.5 million.
Cheap.
Fucking hell, if you knew he was going to play. But is it him or Marcal? I think it's probably still Marcal. Which, with that in mind, is probably going to make people maintain interest in Roman Saiz. 7.5 million. It's decent. The problem is you removed the 16 points against Sheffield United and 0-1 and then 7 against Fulham. He's not impressive. The Wolves centre-halves are almost never exclusively going to pick you up passing or tackle tiers. Saiz would be the best one to get you the odd goal. Johnny is great for tackles on that, but he's obviously out till 2021. So the 5.5 million guy or Marcal at 6.3 would be the way to go. Marcal's got a flag. We've had Kilman cover at left wing back. He's 5.3. He played the Fulham game. I suspect they played him there because they thought it's Fulham. We can get away with it. So I really don't know where that stands. So unfortunately, I have to avoid it. And then I'll just have Patricio sit there, I think.
What about midfield and up front? I mean, we talk about Jimenez and Ings and Co in the same bracket. 10.3 million for Jimenez. Seems a little bit expensive, if I'm honest with you.
I think if you compare that to, say, you're getting $1 million shaved off for Calvert-Lewin, 0.4 shaved off for Danny Ings. Once you start doing that sort of thing, you go, it's probably a little bit much. He becomes a player for me, Jimenez. He becomes about coverage. You think, his consistency is great. I get him in, I captain him. And sure enough, when you do that, he'll score for you. He'll get you a nice little comfortable return. But it's always ones, isn't it? He doesn't often hit the shot tiers. He tends to have one chance in a game, and every other game he scores. That's how it feels with him a lot. And therefore, I find it frustrating with Raul Jimenez that I obviously had periods where I captained him during the restart period. So I had experience of owning him. It's just not very enjoyable, to be honest. You feel like you're going to get a return, but you feel like that's all you're going to get. And in this game, your difference maker at the end of the day will be hitting the De Bruyne captaincy against Wolves, for example, or hitting that Kane or Son treble, for example. Jimenez, you never feel like he's going to get a hat-trick or anything. We called it last week and went, Fulham, he'll score, probably. He's not even fucking done that, has he? No. One chance saved by the goalkeeper. It's so typical him. And that's why I think, look, they're a great side. I trust them. I want a bit of it because I know they're going to have games where I'm going to need the coverage. and therefore Patricio fixes the problems for me at the moment. So I think that's where I'll go.
Podence was talk of the town in FPL. He hasn't had any tiering points. I know he obviously missed one game, but 6.6 in this game is what you'd consider cheap.
Yep.
Not a consideration for me, though.
Well, to be honest, I just look at that even in the Leeds game, and I think like what they should do is play Jimenez and Traore up front and get Neto and Podence out the team, or play Neto. Neto can play in a midfield three.
Yeah.
So you got potentially the three of them competing for one or two places up front, depending on whether they play 5-2-3 or 5-3-2, for example. And I just think he's a risk. I mean, in this game, it doesn't matter so much. You'll get the 1 point off the bench and your player will not play. He's also going to be the first player substituted. So from that alone, he's unlikely to be hitting your tiering, because you guys who hit the tiering will generally be on the pitch the longest.
For longer, yeah.
Yeah, it's great value. Yes, it's a punt. He's 0.3 million cheaper than Rui Patricio. Yeah. If I wanted to make that comparison genuinely, Patricio will well outscore him if you actually want to compare that like that.
Yeah, agreed. I don't disagree with that at all. He's only on 12 points so far. Patricio already on 22 points. So there we go. Now we know you're 33, James, and my kind of 11 has potentially got some tweaks in it. I do think I want to get Ollie Watkins in. The sacrifice that you talked about making, that I probably didn't think I would want to, but might have to spread my funds a bit better, would be Bruno Fernandes. And going without him might be interesting as well.
Yeah, the scariest bit with no Bruno is knowing the capability. You're almost definitely going no Manchester United coverage if you go without, and he's going to be hard to get back to. You need to weigh that up before you decide not to do it. I think it might be worth the gamble, because going Fernandes to Pulisic allows me a lot of different things, for example.
There we go to all the listeners. Thank you for tuning into Planet Sky FF. This was the first part of our Overhaul 10, 12 days, whatever it is, special, to give you a rundown from the teams A to W, what we think might be good and interesting options. Next week, James, do you think you'll be locked in? Pretty
Bloody hell, I just seen how long we've been fucking recording for.
Not that long. Hour and 20. It's not that long.
It's only meant to be half our show.
Oh, okay. I thought we'd already planned to allow for it to be longer.
No, we just like to talk.
Oh, I thought hour 15, hour 20 was going to be plenty, but we've been for every single team here, James. I think it's important to give people coverage.
We knew it was going to go, and this is also why we didn't send a tweet out for questions. We will cover some of your questions next Wednesday for sure,
as well as a rundown of probably 90 to 99% where we are with our drafts. Other than that, guys, if you do need more FPL content during this international break and you don't know what to do with yourself, or Sky content, or just football content, head over to patreon.com/Planet FPL, where you can support the show and all of the work that James and I do. But most importantly, stay safe wherever you are with COVID on the rise. Wash your hands. Ciao for now.
Thanks, everyone. Cue music, please, man child.